What's happening, people? If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be talking about I'd rather live in a van than be broke. So this analogy, I'd rather live in a van than be broke. So living in a van is very, very minimal. You will be an outsider. You will naturally become a loner. So these are some negatives. Like I said, I'm giving you the raw truth, okay? I'm not here to bullshit about what it is like living in a van. Living in a van is a hard way of life, okay? But if you're looking to save a ton of money, that is the main reason why I do it. Because I'd rather live in a van, make memories, travel where I want to be, and I work in construction and landscaping. It's my like main trade, so it's good because when I want to work, I can like travel to the job, and I can sleep there like the night before and stuff like that because I work away a lot. So that's a good advantage. But living in a van, it saves a lot of money. It saves a lot of time. You don't have to wake up and commute for hours and hours to get to work because you can just travel to work, whatever you do. Obviously, it needs to be quite like flexible because if you live in a van. But yeah, like I said, but then if you live in a property, you're obviously stuck in one place. You can't. You're always going to hit the traffic, and if you live in a property, it's expensive. You've got to pay rent, you've got to pay bills, you've got to pay council tax. You got maintenance, everything that comes with a property. But living in a van, it gives you that freedom. It gives you that freedom that everyone desires. Just being able to do what you want when you want and go wherever you want. And okay, like you will have problems now and again with the fan because end of the day it is an engine, it's a machine, and things will go wrong. But when it goes wrong, it's not the end of the world because you can just leave it where it's parked and you can just take your time to get it fixed. Because it's quite flexible like that. Or even if you've got access to a second vehicle, you can just use the second vehicle and leave the camper van where it is while it's getting fixed. But yeah, like I said, I'd rather live in a van than not be broke. Because I'm telling you, if I live in a property, it's going to be very stressful. It's going to be very demanding. Constantly having outgoings coming out my ears, constant bills to pay. The rent is just going up astronomically. Unless you've got a council property, it's not affordable. It's not affordable. You can't private rent. You can't in this UK. You cannot private rent by yourself. You either have to house share, so get a room. You either have to get a council property, or you live with your family, your parents, where you just get obviously subsidized rent. That is it. If you're private renting, you have to have a very successful job, and even then that might not cut it. If you're private renting, it's best to share with someone else. But then there runs the risk. What happens if you guys fall out, or etc., or what happens if someone's circumstances changes. You can't obviously foresee these things. So I'd rather live in a van than be broke because living in a van gives me that freedom. I don't have to. I don't have to put all my eggs in one basket. I can travel to different locations. I don't have to constantly pay rent every month and pay bills, and pay council tax. Most of my stuff I get for free. Like electric's free for me because I have the solar panel. Obviously I obviously run the engine. When I'm working, I can charge my appliances. Water's free for me because I can just fill it up at taps. So I don't pay much. My biggest expense is probably the fuel, and mine obviously the insurance and tax, and all that comes with a vehicle. But really, that is it. That is it. There isn't really much more to it. So I like having that freedom, which what it gives me living in a van. But let's not sugarcoat it. Living in a van, it can be a hard way of life. It can be difficult. You do have to be rugged. You do have to be rugged to live in a van. It's not for everyone. But if you're looking to save lots of money, it is great for that reason because you'll not pay any rent. You don't have to pay any bills. You just got to literally look after the van, and that's it. And the rest of it's cheap. And like I said, if you've got a flexible job where you think you can live in the van and you can still work, then that's great. But it's not going to be ideal for people working in like offices or salesman jobs where you got wear suits every day because it's not practical to be dressing up in suits in a camper van. But if you work in like construction work or just any sort of job where you can just wear what you want, and it's much easier because it's much more flexible. That's just my opinion anyway. But like I said, I'd rather live in a van than be broke, and these are the reasons why I still live in the van. But if you think this is useful or interesting, then consider subscribing. Peace.